Any of us, even the bravest among us, occasionally suffer a nightmare that makes us wake up with a startle and jumping heart. But then, once we realize it was just a dream, we can just sigh and say to ourselves, "Thank God it was just a dream, and that's that." But should a dream visit you again and again and again, even sometimes over the years, what should we make of that? They may not even be a typical nightmare at the first glance, but should that recurring dream evolve over time and even manipulate you to bend to what feels like its own design? Could we then simply turn around and say, it was just a dream and it's all over now? Today, I collected stories about such disturbing recurring dreams. I know dreams-related episodes tend to perform poor on my channel, but please just try and listen and tell me if you wouldn't be feeling disturbed if you had these dreams yourself. So, here are 4 allegedly true stories about creepy recurring dreams. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. From about 6 years ago, I get this recurring dream, probably once in a couple of months. In the dream, I'm in a sort of large-scale holiday resort that I had never seen in real life. The facilities are quite upscale, as in a hotel. Considering I find familiar faces of old classmates and school teachers, I assume I'm there on a school field trip. The resort is consisted with several buildings linked by gardens or park areas. At first, I barely saw much more than my own room and the corridor that led to other mates' rooms. But as the dream repeated again and again, I ventured around the other areas too. The most familiar place for me is the library there. I do love reading, and in the dream too, I spend most of my time there. As the time passed, the library expanded and upgraded. Larger space, new books, more shelves. Yet the people and the staff in the library remained the same all the time, including the little boy looking around the bookshelves next to me whenever I am there. One very particular bit creepy quirk of this dream world is, in every image in this world, be it an illustration in a book or a painting hanging on the wall, every person is depicted beady-eyed. Not like the cute large black eyes of your teddy bear, but they are more like a mass of numerous small black grains. And these creepy eyes play a crucial role for me in this dream, because I can wake up from this dream only when I stab one such an eye in a painting or an illustration. Usually, at the beginning of the dream, I don't realize it's a dream. I'm just mindlessly happy and light-hearted like a teenager on the first day of a holiday, and I just roam around. People in the dream are also all kind, bright, and I get on with them well. Then, as I gradually realize it's a dream and I should wake up, the people around me get anxious and nervous. They clearly don't want me to leave them and want me to keep on dreaming. And the only way to escape the dream is to stab an eye in a painting or an illustration. Problem is, as time passes and dream recurs, it gets harder to do that. People in the dream have got more desperate and aggressive to stop me. In more recent dream, I nearly failed to stab an eye, and I saw how people were madly excited to see that. It creeped me out so much that I tried my might to stab an eye again, and could wake up. Don't know if it was coincidence or not, but the dream left me ill for a few days. Bigger problem is, it is getting harder to find an image of a face, because they are removing paintings and illustrations bit by bit. The easiest place to find a painting or an illustration are the art gallery and the library. And since when the paintings in the gallery are hung so high, well above my reach, and that leaves the library my best bet. If I happen to realize it's a dream in some other parts of the resort, I literally have to play a cat and mouse chase all the way to the library among people who are desperate to stop me getting there. But now, even in the library, more and more book covers and illustrations are replaced with landscape or abstract images, making it harder for me to find an eye to stab. In some desperate instances in the past dreams, I even tried to stab an eye of an actual person, but apparently that didn't work. The only key for me is an eye in an image. Once I caught a library staff taking down a big portrait painting that has been hanging there all the time and putting up a new landscape painting. I asked him why, and his reply was, "To reduce eyes." Clearly they know, and are trying to make it difficult for me to wake up. I don't know why these dreams keep happening to me. Apart from the dream, I'm content with my life and don't feel psychological pressure either. Once I tried to talk about it to a therapist, but his reaction was lukewarm. And currently I'm just trying not to think about it too much. But I can't help but feeling a bit helpless. I'm 18 now, and the dream I had 2 weeks ago prompted me to write this post, because it was yet another episode of the recurring dream that started 4 years ago. The first dream 4 years ago went like this. In the dream, I woke up in my own bedroom, just as in reality. I looked at the window, and the sky looked grey. When I sat up, I saw a large picture hanging on the wall. It was a print of Mona Lisa. I don't have it in reality, but in the dream I didn't give much thought about it. I stood up and headed to the door, but I couldn't open it. It was locked, but not from the inside. As I kept trying the door, I heard some sound from the outside, a rather husky voice of a woman. I looked out the window and saw a woman banging on the gate to the neighbor across the street. "Open! Open!" the woman repeated as she banged the gate. The noise somehow irritated me, and I said rather loudly, "Gosh, noisy!" The window was closed, but I was loud enough to be heard. And then I woke up from the dream. I didn't really think anything much about the first dream, except that it was rather vivid. Then, a couple of years later, I had a second dream. Just as in the first, I woke up on my bed. I looked up the window, and the sky was a bit darker and drizzle was falling. I sat up, and the print of Mona Lisa was there as before, except the corners of her lips were a bit more lifted. I stood up and headed to the door, but it was locked with a padlock. Somebody had put on the latch and padlocked it for a good measure. As I struggled with the lock, "Open!" the familiar noise was heard from the outside. Strangely, I got angry about it. I opened up the window and shouted directly, "Shut up!" Then the eyes of the woman met mine. Her eyes were huge, as if the corners of the eyes were torn open. They scared me, so I closed the window and took a step back. My eyes caught Mona Lisa again, and now her eyes were narrowed and lips wide spread into a clear big smile. And I woke up Just 2 weeks ago, I had a third dream. It started the same. It was raining properly outside the window now, and I instantly realized I was back in the dream. I quickly glanced over the Mona Lisa, and her mouth was now wide open to a big laughter. I was already terrified with the sight and ran to the door. But now, several planks were nailed across the door. I turned around to the window. A shadow of a person was shown through the frosted glass. I instinctively thought it should be that woman who was banging on the neighbor's gate. She grabbed on the security bars and... "Open! Open!" screamed and banged on my window. I frantically tried to open the door to get away from there, banging my shoulder to it, but it was in vain. The moment I passed out in the dream, I woke up. I was soaked with cold sweat, and my mind was hazy. I glimpsed over the window. Shit. Heavy rain was pouring down. I didn't wake up. I was still dreaming. To make sure, I turned to the wall for the Mona Lisa, and there she was, now with her face horribly distorted. I jumped up again and ran to the door. But there was no door at all, but just a wall, as if there never had been a door. Outside the window was still the woman. She had torn out the security bars and now breaking window glasses. The outer glass broke and the inner glass cracked. I stepped back to the farthest corner of the window, and with a one last bang, the inner window ripped and flew down. The woman was there. Her face with enormous eyes were creepily laughing. She twisted her neck and said, "Why didn't you open?" Her head and neck twisted further, and then, "Why didn't you open? Why didn't you open? Why didn't you open?" rapid-fired like mad, and rushed towards me. And then I woke up. Now, I'm frankly scared. What should happen should the dream return again? I still feel as if that woman would jump on me from behind any time. I'm afraid to fall asleep. I tend to note down when I get an interesting dream, in the hope that it may one day provide an inspiration to a story or a scenario. And there's this series of dreams that I've had over the years that follows a certain motive. The first dream I had must have been in my late teens. It was before I started noting down dreams, so the memory isn't clear. But in it, my younger brother claimed that he was entering high school and we should visit his new school to be. The school was just a typical school, not far from the school I attended at the time. Except there was a major construction going on one corner of the ground. My brother excitedly said that was going to be the biggest advantage of his new school, that they were building a large-scale hot spring spa facility. I just thought it a mildly funny dream, a high school with a hot spring spa. I remember I talked about it to my younger brother the following day just for an amusement. The next time I had a follow-up dream was when I became a uni student. On the strange street, I ran into Mom and her friends. I asked them where they'd been, and Mom said they were coming back from the hot spring spa at my brother's school. "Didn't you say you two went there with your friends this morning?" Mom added. I walked along the street further up, and there it was, the high school. There was even a weirdly detailed notice at the gate informing the spa was open to the public only on Sundays. I started taking a note from this dream on. The next one was 3-4 months later. In the dream, I was walking along with friends, all of them from my elementary and middle school days, and haven't seen for many years since in real life. They were all grown up themselves, yet amusingly I could still recognize who they were. Anyway, there were 6 to 8 of us, loudly chattering with laughters and generally fooling around as guys often do when gathered in a group. Then one of them said, "Hey, isn't it about time we tried that spa facility?" I don't know why, but it gave me bigger anxiety than in any old nightmare. What was going on? Why should that spa thing come back time after time? I still tried to rationalize by putting it down to Inception, the film that I watched a couple of days prior. The next dream came just in a matter of few weeks. I was back with the same group of friends again, basically continuing from the last one. "Let's just go to an internet cafe, not a spa," one of them said as a response. So we ended up in an internet cafe and played StarCraft, the game, against each other. My team lost, and we had to buy the winning team lunch. The entire sequence was very real and detailed. How we played the game, all the detailed strategy, mistakes, and process of losing. So much so, I even contemplated the possibility of multi-universe theory if there wasn't another me living in a different universe. The next follow-up was more than a year later, during I was serving in the military. There I was walking with somebody whose face I can't remember. He was complaining. "Geez, I'm totally broke. It's all because we lost the bet last time. Who would have thought the lunch would cost so much?" Then we ran into my younger brother. He claimed he saw me at the internet cafe just earlier. And I said to my brother, "Hey, let's go to the spa tomorrow." I found it fascinating that the dream seems to continue on from the last time, even though it was a year and a half apart. The last one was just a few days ago. It started with me having a meal at a restaurant with my parents. Dad poured me a glass, saying that he congratulated me for finishing the military service. One glass led to another and then another, and I got tipsy even in the dream. I asked where my brother was, and Mom said he was busy finishing his paper. Well, in reality, he failed to enter a university and went straight working, so there was no paper for him to write, but anyway. Then, I and Dad were walking down the street, both pleasantly drunk. I saw the high school with a hot spring spa over there. That spa again? I seem to keep dreaming about it again and again, I thought to myself. Then back at home, I dropped on the bed and straight dozed off. I have no idea what these dreams are about. It's different from real life and yet still close enough and very vivid. I wonder when the dream should return, and indeed what should happen if I finally visit the spa. My grandpa, my dad's father, treated me so sweetly. Whenever I visited him, he would take me to the corner shop hand in hand and bought me my favorite honey snack. Naturally, I liked him a lot. But even to my little kid's eyes, I sometimes felt he tried too hard to win my favor. Even when I clearly was naughty and on the guilty side, he never disciplined me, but took a more appeasing attitude, like,
My handsome prince doesn't do such a thing, does he?
Now, about this recurring dream. I don't remember how old I exactly was when it first started, but I'm sure it was when I was pre-teen. I always find myself in this very modern, clean, pleasant, but somewhat empty space. I think the closest I can compare it to from real life is a large contemporary art museum, just minus artworks. In the middle of that bright space is a big table, and a table full of scrumptious food. Next to the table is a middle-aged woman kneeled down. Not just a next-door type, but very calm and graceful. To put it in more trendy term, she looks the old money. And the woman invites me to enjoy the food on offer. At first, the dishes on the table were those for a typical traditional memorial ritual. Apple, pear, dried cord, dried jujube, grilled beef, some traditional sweets and pan-fried goodies. The only thing non-traditional was my favorite honey snack. For little me, such an old-fashioned food was not my favorite, so I just ate a few pieces of pan-fried meatball, a piece of sweets, and a handful of a honey snack. The elegant lady was clearly unhappy that I ate only so much, but she put on a saleswoman's smile and chatted me up, asking how my parents were doing, etc. And at the end of it, she sneakily asked, "Handsome prince, do you mind if I open the door now?" I just thought, what for? When the temperature was perfect and the diffused sunlight was pleasant, and told her, "Don't open." And then I woke up from the dream. And the same dream repeated several times over the following few years. The setting remains exactly the same, but the menu on the table seemed to get updated bit by bit, more towards my youthful palate. It always ended with a woman seeking my permission to open the door, and me turning it down. It was about then that I overheard my parents' conversation about my grandpa, things I never knew until then. Apparently, he passionately hated my mom because she's from poorer family. The insults he readily poured onto my mom was apparently beyond description. When my dad nevertheless chose to marry her, Grandpa shunned him away and cut all the contacts. It was only when I was born years later that Grandpa sought to revive the contact, which is curious because Grandpa never bothered when my older brother and sister were born. Come to think of it, I hardly ever saw Grandpa even bother to directly talk to my mom or my older siblings, let alone be nice to them. The same dream returned when I entered high school. And I remember this one clearly because the food on offer was totally different. The entire table was filled exactly with my then favorites. KFC chicken and biscuits, custard tarts, bulgogi sauce burger, sweet potato pizza with a cheesy crust, popcorn chicken, and a big bottle of Coke. They were neatly piled up in the typical memorial ritual table setting. For the first time, I lost my mind in the sight of food there. I finished off 6 burgers, 15 custard tarts, 1 full pizza, and a handful of popcorn chicken, like I'd been starving for weeks. And then I still moved on to KFC biscuits. And I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in Korea, a KFC biscuit is served with a strawberry jam. And there I found just 1 small packet of jam for a whole pile of biscuits. So in the end, I left most of them. The woman, as always, asked with a sneaky smile, "Handsome prince, do you mind if I open the door now?" For the first time, I thought for a brief moment, maybe I should go for a walk since I stuffed myself so much. But I quickly changed my mind that I'd rather take a nap. "Don't open," I said. and woke up. About 2 years later, the dream returned. The table full of food was once again updated to my most recent taste. There were beef quesadillas, sushi, and all kinds of sashimi neatly piled up. Big bowls of spice and wasabi soy sauce were ready too, unlike the mingy amount of jam last time. There was also oven-baked meat sauce spaghetti, topped with golden brown cheese. Once again, I ate them all like a starved man. All the good men are out the window. I just grabbed a fistful of sashimi, chunked it straight into the bowl of spicy sour sauce, and stuffed it in my mouth. Unlike in reality, the mountain of food didn't make me feel heavy. All I sensed was the delicious pleasure on my tongue. This time, I finished them all down to a morsel. The woman carefully approached me. She praised my appetite and massaged my arms and legs with smiles. And then, "Handsome prince, now for once, you wouldn't mind if I opened the door, would you?" And for the first time, I also felt, no, I don't mind at all. Actually, she should open the door. It's hard to explain, but in that given moment, it felt like a certainty without a shred of doubt. How fresh the breeze from the outside would be. Yes, open the door, open it. The woman cackled and sprinted towards the door. And only then I realized for the first time that the woman was wearing a pair of dirty-looking traditional socks. Contrast to her ultra-modern and elegant old-money attire. I couldn't see them because she'd been kneeling down the whole time. As soon as she opened up the door, a crowd of people barged into the space, and I woke up from the dream. I found myself soaked in cold sweat. For the first time, I wondered about the dream. What a weird dream, and how curious. I never thought how weird it is when it repeated over the course of 10 years. In the morning, we got a call that Grandpa passed away. On the second day of the funeral, my grandma, Mom's mother, came to visit and insisted that she should take me with her. My dad refused that Grandpa's favorite grandson should be present, but Grandma didn't back down. "God showed me a vision. A devil is tempting my grandson. It's all because your father worshipped devils." Not only Grandma has lots of baggage about Grandpa, who treated her daughter like a shit, but initially she wasn't happy about my parents' marriage either, because to a devout evangelical Christian's mind, she couldn't take Grandpa favorably, who was very superstitious and firmly believed in traditional shamanism. In the end, Grandma managed to take me away from the funeral. On the way, Grandma told me, "In my dream, I saw a devil opening up the door in front of you, my boy. A door to the hell." Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Did you have a recurring dream yourself? I think I had one through my childhood and into early teens, but considering I don't remember the details, I think it was nothing quite so disturbing as today's stories. I just remember the vague sense of, I'm back there again, almost like nostalgia. If you enjoyed my work, please give it a thumbs up and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. If you'd support me more directly, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account, the link's in the description, or there's a Super Thanks option here on YouTube for a small donation. Thank you. The year's near the end already. Anxiety-inducing. Well, hang on, and take care till next time.